Our scripture lesson this morning comes from Luke. It was chosen by this week's spokesperson, Rick, who will get a chance to hear a little bit from today, a little bit of his story. Part of the reason we're doing this spokesperson, we're not using that in the traditional sense. We're using it in the sense that we feel that we're part of this big wheel, and each of us gets to be these spokes that connect us together. And furthermore, each of us is made in the image of God and has an experience of who the divine is. And as we share those stories with each other, we can borrow each other's eyes and see just a little bit more of who the divine is and how they reveal themselves to us. So I'm super excited. I'm going to read this scripture through for you, and then I'll invite up Rick, and we'll have a conversation, and hopefully it encourages you to reach out and connect with each other. We heard from Gary last week. There'll be a new spokesperson each week, and I hope that it makes you feel more connected, build the bonds of friendship and Christian community together. So let's listen for Luke 24:13-35. Many of you have probably heard this story. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. This is right after Jesus was crucified. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened, namely this major event of the state killing Jesus. As they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. He, Jesus, asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still with their faces downcast. And one of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he, Jesus, asked. And they tell him about Jesus of Nazareth. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. And when he was at the table with them, he took bread and he gave thanks and he broke it and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It's true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized them when he broke the bread. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks Thanks be to God. Oh, Rick, we're going to have fun. I can't wait. That's the traditional transition between scripture and sermon, friends, a little jig. I hope all are so excited. If you want to grab this little chair here, we can move that bag, and I'll grab this little chair over here. Thank you, friends. It's a team effort here. And Mariah, can I have you give your mic to Rick? Thanks so much. Thank you, Gary. There we are. That's perfect. That's perfect for today. That's what we need. So Rick and I had a little chance to get together this week and sort of preview. You're hot. Yeah, you're good. Sort of preview the scripture and kind of what it meant to you. And I'd let you know a little bit about what I would ask. So any of my other spokespeople that are listening, you kind of get the preview here too. But the first thing I wanted to do before we dive into the scripture was ask you to tell us a little bit about the faith of your childhood. How were you sort of raised in religion or not, faith or not? Would you share with us?
First of all, good morning, everyone. And this is very nerve-wracking for me. So thanks to Katie, I was able to get a preview of the questions and be able to jot down some notes. So forgive me if I look down at my notes. For me, it was your typical childhood faith. You start out believing what adults tell you is the truth, and then over time, you come to realize what they're telling you doesn't always match reality. Take these glasses off.
Yeah. I put up the picture you sent me too.
Okay. Now I'm lost. Guess
You might just have to.
Yeah, here we go. What you're telling you doesn't always match reality. As you grow in awareness, you grow more confused. You learn in Sunday school Jesus is very special and can and did make miracles happen. And then you test that, because you're a child, by praying for a new ball glove or a bicycle. And thus you learn about disappointment. Your Sunday school teacher patiently explains that faith and prayer, they don't work that way, Rick. And as you learn more about Jesus, you come to realize you'd probably be more successful if you steal the ball glove and then pray for forgiveness.
Oh, jeez.
You see, Jesus only has a few ball gloves to give, but he's loaded with forgiveness. So my mom, that's her there, standing in front of our church, Stony Ridge United Methodist Church. And she took us there once my sister and I started getting good at fighting and calling each other names. And this was back when the Methodist Church was very conservative, especially those small, isolated country churches, most of which were modeled on ours. And to give you an idea, our church was perfectly okay with dancing, at least for those people who were going to hell anyway. But in those days, we were witnessing the birth of rock and roll. And it carried with it a strong dancing component. And young lads like me were caught up in the struggle between good and evil. Case in point, I was required to participate in an organization called MYF, Methodist Youth Fellowship. They met at the church on Sunday evenings, same time as the Ed Sullivan Show. You recognize where I'm going with this, because the Ed Sullivan Show introduced the Beatles to America. I didn't see it.
Me neither.
Another Protestant. Yeah. It was another Protestant opportunity to get comfortable with disappointment. But the hardest thing was going to school Monday morning and admitting you did not see the Beatles last night. You didn't see the Beatles? No, I didn't see it. What do you mean you didn't see it? It was on Ed Sullivan. Ed Sullivan's over by 9 o'clock. It wasn't past your bedtime, Rick. I didn't see it. Oh, come on. What are you, moron? No, we're not morons. We're Methodists. So it was your typical childhood faith.
Yeah. That's an interesting point about the disappointment. I remember experiencing that myself and also feeling that there was a gap between the Jesus I was introduced to in my childhood and the Jesus that adults seem to believe in, and me not knowing what to do with that gap, and often becoming concerned that the church didn't know what to do with that gap either. And if they didn't know, well, then what was going to happen to the rest of us? Yeah. So I want to ask you about this scripture passage that you chose. You gave me another picture here. I want to let everybody know, you don't have to do notes and pictures. This is just Rick being Rick, and he's allowed. And we love you for it. But tell us a little bit about this scripture passage that you chose and how that influenced the development of your faith, or why it's important to you.
The road to Emmaus is a metaphor for the journey that we call life. It is a spiritual journey, certainly. The two walking and talking could be any two people, and I like it that way. It could be a married couple. It could be a couple neighbors. It could be coworkers. It could be a doctor and a patient. It could be a sheriff and his prisoner. Two people engaged in conversation about things they don't understand in a topsy-turvy world. Spiritual matters, perhaps, or maybe just disgusted with how authority takes advantage of us, and our friends, how unjust the world is. Imagine discussing the Jesus story without any knowledge of the modern ending. The story ends with the teacher dead, an empty tomb, his students scattered, fearful, seeing supernatural beings. They're in disarray. And they're asking themselves, now what do we do? I can see these two guys. Well, what are you going to do? Oh, I don't know. I think maybe I'll go back to Emmaus, and I can still drive a donkey cart. Perhaps Uber's hiring. But what I like about this story is the openness of it. It allows us, and it actually invites us to find ourselves in it. And what I like is that the conversation is so good, Jesus can't resist getting involved. If you're walking down the street and two people are up ahead of you, but you're walking faster and you catch up and you realize they're talking about you, you're going to get involved. And Jesus comes up on this and he says, guys, hold on a second. Think of it this way. And he begins to explain things. It's kind of like for me, it's kind of like a 500-piece puzzle, and each piece is cut exactly the same, so that any piece fits anywhere. And it's a scrambled mess. Jesus starts putting it together correctly, and they start getting the picture. Hey, this makes sense. Then in the breaking the bread, their eyes were opened, and again, we could run with that metaphor for another 20 or 30 minutes, and I won't. But what I will say is what's interesting is what those two guys did next. They were tired, walking and talking, and they went to bed, right? No. They were totally jazzed up and took off for Jerusalem immediately in the dark. Just imagine that conversation. Were your ears burning? Burning. My heart was burning when that guy was talking. I'm telling you, that guy, did you recognize it was Jesus? Yeah, that was Jesus. They are going to be so astounded when we get back. I mean, you know what? I'll bet you this story makes it into the Bible. You think so? I'm telling you, it'll be in there. You watch. And so for me, the road to Emmaus is our story. Each one of us is in there somewhere.
Yeah. I love that you took notes, Rick. So good. So good. When we met, I was like, I'm going to have to interrupt you, okay, Rick, on several occasions, and steer us back to the conversation. But you've just captured it so in such a lovely way, this idea that one of the things that strikes me about what you've shared and this story in this moment is that it's after it happened that they're able to go, wait, I did feel something. And I find that so often true of the spiritual journey of revelation, the journey of getting to know Christ, that it's after, in the aftermath of it, that you go, oh, that was Jesus. That was an angel in an unexpected place, in an unexpected way, couldn't even recognize it.
Mhm.
And there it was. And not only there it was now, but look at the way it's echoed back through time and space and scripture and individuals and my whole story. It's like that one little light comes on and then it shines light on everything else.
Yeah, what I call the light bulb moment.
The light bulb moment.
Mhm.
I love that. So we started with the beginnings of your faith journey. We captured a moment in time that has been formative, a scripture that has been formative. And then I'd like to hear how that helped you end up here. Take us to the next chapter of the story.
So, what has drawn me to Beach Street Church? Well, let me start out by saying I did not come here seeking answers. I came seeking spiritual people who were asking the right questions. The answers, I think, are inside each of us. The answers are not obvious. We will struggle to find them on our journey through life. But it helps if we align ourselves with someone who knows how to ask the right questions. It also helps if it's obvious that they're searching for the answers too. It helps me find my way by walking beside someone else trying to find their way on the road to Emmaus. Emmaus is not the destination. It's not the goal. And BSC is not Emmaus. At Beach Street Church, I find people asking the right questions for the right reasons. And I'm allowed to find my answers, not have answers forced upon me. But without good, thought-provoking questions, I don't know where to look for the answers or how to uncover or unlock the answers. Without good questions, I get lazy and stop looking. I come to Beach Street Church for the questions, not the answers.
Thank you for that. I hope this can be a place not only where you're hearing the right questions, but where each person that gathers in person or online feels safe enough to ask the hard questions. Because the reality is, all of us want to ask hard questions. All of us have questions. And we're in a world that tells us what we're supposed to have as answers and destinations, confidence, boastful correctness. I mean, if you're not right, then you're wrong. And this is a place that says there's space between those two. There's space between right and wrong. There's space between, absolutely confident and total disarray. And we journey in those in-between spaces. So I'm so grateful that you're willing to walk with us and ask the hard questions. And I hope you guys will ask him some hard questions as you continue to get to know each other as we journey together. Yep. A little image popped up in my head as you kind of said that. And it's like you get to be kind of a little beacon of light, continuing your light bulb moment. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes think in my own mind, I imagine that means that there's, vast quantities of people in space and, all these things that are shining this big bright light. The reality of a lighthouse is it's fairly small, but it's very bright. Thanks for bringing your big bright light. Even if it's just one, or even as we amplify it by gathering together, may we be a bright light. And thank you for your time, your willingness to get up here and do it scared.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're grateful for you, Rick. Let's give Rick a round of applause. Thank you, Rick. Appreciate you, friend. Invite our singers and musicians back up to invite us into our next piece of worship and reflection.